Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning into RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. In this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm, I'm your host, Norm, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Roger Tully.
Hello.
Hi, Roger.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, Roger, according to your website, is an award-winning director and photographer for ad agencies and your own sort of corporate clients and nonprofits and universities and stuff.
Correct.
Which of those things do you do most?
I would say mostly it's corporate. I do a lot of like patient testimonials, videos for some clients. So it would be going somewhere where a patient's life has been altered or changed for the better,
right?
And spending a day with them, and telling their story, and then the clients use those on their websites.
Okay.
So that's probably about 70-80% of my work is that.
Nice. And is there a particular client who you work for most in that realm?
Weill Cornell Medicine is one of them. I have a couple of clients in the medical device field. One's called Nevro, and they're a spinal cord stimulator company.
Oh, wow.
So their stimulator basically blocks the pain signal going from people's legs and backs up to their brain. So it's a life-changing, life-altering procedure. And it's just a little stimulator in their back that has two leads attached to.
And it's a pain management thing.
It's a pain management thing, yeah. So.
Wow.
And no medication with it.
I love that. That sounds so cool. Yeah. So that must be kind of a fun part of the job, is getting to know these things that are out there that are helping people.
Yeah, seeing people who feel passionate about their lives being changed and altered for the best. Yeah.
Right. And so when you do that, you're not writing the scripts.
What we do is we create a series of questions, and we'll sit down with them first, and we'll interview them with these questions. And
the patients.
Okay. Yes. And then once that's done, that usually takes 40 minutes to an hour at the most. And then we go out and we do B-roll, which is the fun part. So it's them, what they do with their lives. We had one woman in Australia a couple of years ago who was able to go swimming again. She was a competitive swimmer, and we went to a pool and had her swimming, and
that sounds really kind of poignant.
Yeah, it is. And, just being able to interact with their family again. So a lot of this is people whose lives can again re-enter the world, as far as, interacting with families, going to events where a lot of them, they were really just sort of on very heavy duty pain medication, for instance, and that's a whole other thing that they have to get weaned off of. So that's part of the process. So it's basically they work with pain specialists who might prescribe this as a procedure, and if they go through with it, and for about 90% of the people, it's successful. So it completely blocks the pain signal.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
So when you sit down with them to interview them, you said you come up with a list of questions.
Right.
I'm guessing you or your client, you probably know what answers you want.
Right.
And will you ask them the same question like 2 or 3 times? Will you sort of gently?
No. Because
is that ethically wrong to sort of lead the witness? And
I don't like to do it.
Right.
So we might, if someone stumbles, we might ask them to do it again, say the same thing again, but take the stumble out, or you stumbled on that. Would you like to do that again? Would you like to answer it in a slightly different way?
Right.
So yeah, it's a way of getting, and then that becomes your script for that little 90-second, 2-minute video.
Right.
So,
but going in, the answer you want, like, oh, this shit's the bomb. I use it all the time. It gave me my life back.
Yeah, they don't even have to be prompted. It is. I mean, there are tears that flow. There are.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's
for this particular product.
For that one. Yeah.
But there must be other products where people are like, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
And your task is the same. Make it seem freaking awesome.
Yeah, or I think I really enjoy working with clients who I believe in what they're doing. So it's not a big push for me to have to force something out of an interview that just to make it sound better.
Right.
So.
Now, it's a special. I had a friend years ago who did that, more sort of man in the street, intercept interviews and stuff. And it's a whole nother art form, a whole different kind of directing than just directing some actors as they're going through a couple of scenarios for Tide or whatever.
Correct.
And did you study that somewhere? This other type of engagement?
No, it really stems from my early career as a photojournalist. Because as a photojournalist, you go to cover something, and 99% of the time it's real people. So this is just sort of an extension of that, except it's a little bit more involved because you're doing, you need sound, you need, the imagery, and it's not just still pictures. So it's moving pictures. So you have to think in terms of how is this all going to cut together in a 90-second, piece.
Right. Gotcha. Now you mentioned photojournalism, which you got some gigs for Time or Life magazine or whatever when you were a young man.
Yeah, when I was in college, I went to a school for photojournalism, and the school it was called Moore Park College in California, and they had this one professor had an animal behavioral course, and students would take his course and take the program and go on to go to SeaWorld or all these zoos and parks around the world. So it was and they had a lot of live, animals that you just can't have roaming around. So I thought it was a pretty unique story. So I wrote a letter to People magazine about the professor, and I was a sophomore in college.
Okay.
Sent the letter, and a week later there was a message on my answering machine from the photo editor of People magazine saying, we'd like you to do a 3-day shoot for us covering this. So I got published in People magazine as a sophomore.
Amazing. And was that your first professional photo gig?
Yeah, because the others were really school newspaper stuff, local newspaper stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Getting extra credit doesn't count as
I wasn't. It didn't go over well with a lot of my other fellow students.
And how come?
Well, because I think they feel I sort of jumped ahead to get to that spot. But I took the initiative of coming up with that story, pitching it, not knowing any different. I shouldn't be pitching something to People magazine when I'm still in college. So,
and did your peers say anything?
Yeah, I mean, my professor, John Gray, was very excited about it. He sort of pushed me along to do that. I don't remember a lot about the reactions, but it was fine. It ended up being fine. So that was really sort of the start of the photojournalism. So, and then I started working for Time and Life magazine. I did a story of the old Hollywood sign. Hollywood sign coming down.
Did you pitch that as well?
No, that was when they came to me. So
they're like, we got a guy out west.
A guy in California, a young guy, and they started feeding me stories. Yeah. It was all the same rate. Yeah, it was all the same rate. But yes. So that segued. I did a lot of photojournalism while I was out there, and then moved to New York to continue that. So. And
was it mostly sort of, features, sort of soft photojournalism? It was one you weren't in war zones.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. I've never covered war. Never ambulance chased. I was coming home from college once, and saw smoke up in the Santa Monica Mountains. And as I was driving closer to where I was living, it just looked like this is a big fire. I got to my apartment. I called Time magazine photo editor, and he said, well, just embed yourself in there. So I went in to that fire zone, didn't have any press credentials or anything, but just, a bunch of rolls of film, and I embedded myself with the firefighters. And it was one of the major, like, Santa Monica Hill fires back in the day. So, so you probably had an impressive looking camera. Yeah, of course. A nice long lens. Which couple of cameras. You can always carry a couple. Right. Yeah. Which probably opened a lot of doors just looking like you belonged. Yeah. I mean, I said I was with Time magazine, and no one questioned it, but I was.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have lied. I wouldn't have George Santos my way into that. So,
Oh my God. No, George Santos talk.
sorry.
Oh boy, that fucking guy. I'm dying to see how this plays out. I'm afraid it's not going to play out in any way at all.
No.
It's just going to stay there, and that's the end of it.
2 years.
So did you eventually get a press pass on a lanyard? Or
No, because a lot of the assignments were not covering events. I mean, I did cover events. I did cover the 1980 Winter Olympics for a German magazine. So I had to get credentials for that.
And where were they?
Where was the Winter Lake Placid?
Oh, okay.
And I was. It's funny because every time I hear Al Michaels' recording of "Do You Believe in Miracles?"
Oh, right, that was the U.S. Russian.
Yeah, and I didn't hear that live because I was shooting the event. I was in the press box with the other photographers.
Shooting this hockey team.
Yes.
When Team USA, against all the odds makers anyway,
sure,
beat the Russian team.
Yeah. And the place was shaking.
The Soviet team.
Yeah, that was the Soviets then. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it was an old arena, and it was shaking. There was so much excitement that the stands were literally shaking up and down.
So how did you get that gig? That sounds like a plum gig.
That was from there's a German magazine back in the day. I think it's still around, Stern magazine, and I met the editor who was in Los Angeles, and started doing some work with him. And he's the one who's assigned me to the Olympics. So, but he did give me one job that it's kind of a weird little shoot. I was supposed to. He said, "Go to LAX, and there's this young German actress coming over from Germany. She's going to be working in the U.S. for the first time." So he gives me the flight, her name. I go to baggage claim, and she and her mother, she's only 13, 14, 15, get off the flight. We're introduced, we're going to be taking some pictures because it was a German magazine, German girl. And there were all these Louis Vuitton luggage. And so I had the sky cap stack up all the luggage and put her on top and do like I'm here in LA. So we're walking out to the curb, and there's two cars. There's just a sedan, and there's a Rolls Royce with smoky glass windows, right? You couldn't see. So the mother gets in the sedan, and the girl gets in the Rolls Royce. And my client shoves $100 in my hand. He goes, "Follow them, see where this goes," because no one knew who this person was. So
the client is like the producer, editor from Stern,
he was the editor. Yeah, the West Coast editor. I hop into a cab and got to say something.
You did?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got to say, "Follow that car."
Yeah.
And he literally was like, "I've never been asked to follow that car." He goes, "Just do it. Just do it." So we followed the car. The girl ended up being Nastasha Kinski.
Oh, nice.
The man whose house we drove up to, and the driver of the Rolls figured that they were being followed. So he starts running lights, and the cab driver starts running lights. Right. This is like in, Westwood. And up into the hills, it was Roman Polanski. So, yeah, that was...
Right.
So the whole follow that car was the first time and only time I've ever gotten to say that.
What a blast.
Yeah, it was.
So they couldn't shake you. You followed them all the way to Roman Polanski's house.
And then just got the address, got back to my car, called the editor. He, through his police connections, knew what found out what the address was.
Right.
Of who lived there. And it was Polanski. So,
pretty good story.
Yeah.
Now, Nastasia Kinski, I'm racking my mind. It was Klaus Kinski, the actor, was her dad. Who was her
father.
Mom?
Yeah.
Didn't she have a famous mom, too?
Not sure.
So this sounds like a pretty good life and a pretty fun career that you've got. How old are you this time? 25?
Yeah, 24, 25.
Sounds like a pretty sweet gig for
Maybe
a young
younger.
kid.
Yeah. I know I didn't want to ever do paparazzi work. That was the closest I've ever come to doing anything paparazzi feeling. It was like following a car.
Right.
But
Who is the guy, Ron Galello or somebody?
Oh,
who's always
Galello, Ron Galello.
on Jackie O, the
Yeah.
famous paparazzi stalker.
Yeah, yeah.
And why didn't you want to do that? I mean, that seems like it might have been.
It just feels dirty.
It's gross. It is.
Yeah,
It's gross.
It's gross.
So you're not doing that, which is great, but you're doing these other things. Are you making a living?
Yeah. I was making a living, but I also, kept in touch with my contacts in New York, and I came for one of my quarterly visits to the city, and I said, look, if I move here, will you keep giving me work? I don't want to just be
Right.
your California guy or a California guy. And they all the 4 or 5 magazines I was working for said, yeah, we'll keep giving you work. So that's when I made the move to New York.
Now, were you raised in California?
I was born and raised till I was 11 in New York. We moved to Texas for the space program. And then we moved to California my dad worked for Grumman. So we moved to California for the F-14 project.
Okay.
That's where they did all their testing, flight tests.
And so when you said New York, were you in Long Island?
Long Island, yeah.
Right, which is where Grumman was.
Right, yeah. Bethpage was was Grumman.
Right. Huh. What a blast.
Yeah.
And so you left the East Coast at 11. You went to Texas for a number of years and then out to LA.
Yeah.
And did some part of you always think you might want to move back east?
It was. I think it was mainly just because of the volume of work in LA compared to New York for photojournalism at the time. It was just a lot more here. And also you could do the European stuff. You can get to Europe from New York easier than from California.
And you said you studied that in college at Moore Park.
Yes, Moore Park. And then I studied a couple of years, 1 year at UCLA under a filmmaker named Gregory Nava. And Greg Nava did, his breakout movie was a movie called El Norte about immigrants from, I think, Guatemala.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. It was a brilliant little movie. And then he did My Family, Mi Familia.
Okay.
And so I was his TA,
Okay. But that sounds like moving pictures.
It was.
But you studied both photography and
I did.
Film.
Yeah. And it seemed like my career path was going faster with photography.
Sounds like it.
So I sort of concentrated. And back then you really couldn't do both. You either had to choose a career as a photographer or in film, unless you were a set photographer, a location set photographer or something like that.
Right.
So,
and that doesn't seem like the most interesting job.
No, it wasn't for me. Yeah.
Right. So you're a documentary photographer on the West Coast, worked for various publications, international publishing. You move east. Yeah. You continue doing that?
Yeah, for a couple of years. In fact, my first assignment, I got sent back to Los Angeles for a shoot.
Nice.
So I was back like 2 weeks later, but just for a couple of days. Yeah, I did that, and I had done a photo essay for Fortune magazine on what used to be called Bell Labs. It was the sort of the innovative side of AT&T. So I did this story, photos, and they ran like 6 pages of pictures. And I get a phone call from someone who was the creative director for AT&T. And he wanted to know if I would come in and show my work. So I went in, showed him my work, which was a carousel of slides back then.
Was it really?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my portfolio.
Did they have the projector?
Oh, yeah.
You just brought the carousel.
Yeah, I just brought the carousel truck.
Do you still have the slide projector and carousel and stuff?
It's got to have been lost by now. Yeah,
it was a particular noise that thing made.
Oh yeah, the fan,
and then the
yeah, exactly. And I showed him my portfolio, and he said, "Well, we really like your work. We want to offer you the annual report. Can you do 21 days for us around the world?" And he wanted to know if this rate that he threw out was okay, which was about 5 times what I was making as a photojournalist.
I hope you said no.
No, I said yes.
And I got to ask, what was the rate? This is in the 70s?
No, this would have been in the 80s. It was, I think it was $900 a day back then.
Not too shabby.
Back then.
Plus expenses. And,
of course, yeah.
And a healthy per diem.
Yep. Yeah. So that sort of launched my corporate career. So I spent the next number of years doing mostly corporate annual reports.
And so presumably you had to say no to some of the photojournalistic gigs that were coming your way because you were doing this. And it was 5 times more money.
Yeah. And when you're not available, of course, people move on to the next. And I remember running into one of my colleagues on 6th Avenue, and he accused me of selling out. You're working for and I said, wait, isn't Time Life a corporation?
So you're always pissing off your peers so far in your career.
But Time Life is a big corporation. It's like you're working for them, a corporation as well. But you're just getting editorial rates for it.
Right.
So,
selling out. So you're doing a lot of corporate stuff. And that's great. And it's paying some bills. And it's the 80s in New York City. Where did you live at that point?
I took the money.
In Bethpage.
Yeah, no. I took the money from that first AT&T shoot, and we bought a loft on West 38th Street and 9th Avenue.
Who's we?
My wife at the time. So, actually, we were just a couple at the time.
On West 39th Street?
West 38th and 9th Avenue.
Which in the 80s, any 80s, was just the desert. It was a wasteland over there.
Yeah, it was. It was.
I lived in the meatpacking district at that time, and lots of the working people, the nighttime workers, were also working up in that neighborhood, as I understand it.
Because of the Port Authority, mostly. So,
oh, geez.
Yeah. But it was a great space, and that's where I started living in the city. So
wow, nice.
So
well, good for you. And you bought the loft. Was it actually legal living?
Oh yeah, it was. It was a legal convert. It was actually a co-op, not a condo.
Right.
So, and it was a leasehold, I think it was called. So basically, there was a 100-year lease on it that would expire in 100 years. We were only into year 3, so I didn't feel any need, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get stuck with, like, not owning this anymore. So
right. I wonder how many years are left on it now, and if that impacts the resale value. You'd think it would.
The resale value is just still going through the roof out over there.
And do you still own this place?
No.
And I happen to know your current wife. So at some point, I'm guessing it didn't work out with the wife on 38th Street.
Yes. And we have 2 kids together, and we get along, and everything's great. So
that's great.
So, yeah.
Which, instead of saying it didn't work out, it's like, well, we got 2 beautiful kids out of that deal. Right. And so did you stay in New York City?
Stayed in New York City, then moved out to Bellport, Brookhaven on Long Island, and spent about 8 or 9 years out there. So, and then
after you and the first wife split?
Yes, we split.
So you're a single guy living in Bellport?
Yes, for a while. Yeah. And then moved back to the city, moved to Brooklyn, gave Brooklyn a try.
And the whole time you're still doing sort of corporate stuff, annual reports and stuff?
Yeah, and some advertising,
advertising. And clients found you through word of mouth. Did you advertise in publications?
Yeah, they
Black Book or
Black Book. Yeah. I always had an ad in Black Book.
That's funny.
Yeah. Picked up some clients that way.
Right, because there was no internet.
No.
The Black Book. I remember getting that thing. It was just huge, and all the photographers, and it's just impossible to really look through. And get a sense. Because it went so fast. Yeah. But it worked for you.
It worked. I think there was another one. It might have been called American Showcase. Might have been the other alternative to Black Book.
Right.
So, yeah.
And at what point did you make a move? Because I know you as a film director.
Right.
And so at some point you moved from just photographs to moving photographs. How did that come about?
It came about because I was beginning to see the writing on the wall where this is, internet's here. A lot of people are using motion, right? Videos. And I had a client, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And I did, I had a contract to shoot like 6 stories for them, for their website. And it was basically, we went out with still cameras and audio, and we record audio. So it was very NPR-ish feel to it. So it was kind of slideshows with music and voices and narration. And again, 2-minute little films. And by the time we got to the 5th one, it was a little story on this organization that was bringing play back to inner city schools, recess play, and they would bring they would train these teenagers and young adults to come into the schools and help organize and wrangle these kids, into some sort of not a free for all at recess.
Right.
And I pitched. I said, I'll shoot stills, but this is a great opportunity. It's kids playing. Let's shoot some video. So they said, okay, bring your video camera. Bring a video camera. I did that. And
had you shot a lot of video prior to that?
No.
Did you know your way around, or barely know your way around?
No, I knew my way around.
Okay.
So we did that, and I edited it together, and it's stills and motion, and then they said, "Oh, well, let's keep doing the motion."
They must
part.
have been thrilled.
Yeah.
If they were and this was the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.
Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Yeah. Huh. So that really sort of springboarded the whole moving into motion.
Right. And then you started doing, at some point, you left the photography behind, and you did.
I'm still doing it. I would say about 15% of my work is still photography. I still do some for Weill Cornell. Is probably the biggest one right now.
And do you ever shoot actual film?
Not in a long time.
It's all digital.
Yeah, it's all digital.
And the video, you're not shooting actual film.
I wish, but no.
Why do you wish? Why do you say that?
I think it would just be great to shoot something on film again, just the whole analog feel of it.
Right. Well, certainly that's available, like with your camera, with your still cameras.
Yeah.
Shoot some film. Do you see a difference in quality between the film stuff and the really super state-of-the-art video?
No, I think the state-of-the-art still or digital is such a high dynamic range that you actually get more than what you can out of film. It's sort of knocking it back down to make it look less digital and make it more cinematic is the goal that a lot of us are always trying to do. So we're always...
And there must be filters out there that you can just slap on to do that.
There's some filters, but also you can do it all in post too.
Right.
So you have your raw file, which is almost like a negative, and you can manipulate it.
And do you do that also, or do you work with somebody else who does that?
I do a lot. I do almost all my own post-production editing because I just like that feel of working on it. There is Chad Smith over Chad has done a lot of
Massive Clouds.
Has done some color grading for me, so I love working with him.
He's the best.
Yeah. So great to work with.
But that's nice. You do almost all of it yourself. I mean, that must allow you to bid competitively versus your peers who probably have to hire a lot of that out.
Yeah, I mean, I do bill for it, so it's probably not that much different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do bill for post-production.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll just stick with the film. Eventually, you've started doing short films, and you just did. I saw a short film called Almost Made, I think.
Yes. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Was it a little too raunchy for you, or was it all right?
Raunchy. I have a medium-high tolerance for raunchy.
Yeah.
No, it was great.
Oh, good.
But what was the story with that?
So, my wife Kathy was cast to work on a real estate commercial, and the person playing her husband was an actor named Jim Glorioso.
Oh yeah,
and you know Jim,
yeah.
So Jim and I just had
COVID compliance officer.
Yes,
Jim Glorioso.
Yes, exactly. And he and another actor, Ronaldo Mancini, had come up with this script. And Jim asked me if I'd take a look at it. I read it. I thought it was hysterical. And I said, let's try to get this done. So we did a GoFundMe thing, and we raised our capital that we needed.
And it's a 20-something minute.
Yeah, film. It's pretty long for a short. So we decided to we're pitching it more as a pilot for an episodic show.
Okay.
So we were all set to go. We had our funding, we had cast it, and this thing called COVID just like shut everybody down.
Oh, geez.
So we're like, we shut down, which gave us time to scout locations, fine tune the script.
I loved the locations.
Yeah, they were
really
all
nice.
up in Amsterdam, New York. So we did that. We had to come up with a whole COVID compliance thing for SAG to even get considered greenlit. So we did this whole thing, mostly Jim, and we even down to blocking out scenes where someone would be 6 feet from someone else, and it's like made it very, very difficult to think about blocking out scenes when you have to keep everyone apart from each other.
Right.
But we ended up being the very first SAG production to get greenlit after COVID. So, well, during COVID, but the first one that they said, okay, you guys can shoot. So we kind of...
And how was the determination made to have it a union film instead of non-SAG?
Gosh, that would be an answer Jim would know more than me. I'm not union, so it is a mixture of both. I know the DP was not union.
You're no unions? You're not in the DGA or anything?
No, I'm not. But we did want to use SAG people, so that's why we...
So you had some actors that you really liked, and they were union, so...
Yeah. And 3 of the guys were teenagers in the movie Bronx Tale. They were in that teenage gang. So now they're, adult men.
Right.
So 3 of them are in the picture. Jackie Martlin, who was Howard Stern.
I actually read for that role when I watched the movie, just like yesterday or something. I was like, wait a minute, those lines sound familiar. And I was like, oh, right, I read for that years and years ago. Yeah. And then didn't get it or whatever. And it's funny because I'm watching it. I'm like, that guy's great. I don't know who that guy is. He's great. And it was Jackie Jokeman Martling of the Howard Stern Show who got my role, the rat. But he was amazing. He was my favorite character in the whole film.
And half the stuff he was like ab-libbing off the top of his head, of course.
Yeah.
He couldn't keep him on script, but it worked. It worked.
Yeah.
So now we're shopping it, and we're doing the festival route. We know one festival this summer it's going to be in. I think it's called Shore. It might be the Shore Festival down in Fort Lauderdale.
Okay.
So it's going to be in that, and Jim has created a whole first season arc to 8 episodes. So we're hoping, we're not giving up on it. I think the whole COVID thing really slowed down the whole process of getting out and meeting with people. But we're getting it out. So we'll see.
Huh. Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
And so will you go to these film festivals and sort of press the flash?
I think so. Yeah, I might. Yeah, should.
Yeah, you might as well.
Yeah,
if that's what you want.
Fort Lauderdale in August, I don't know.
Ooh,
yeah,
yeesh. Yeah. So when you were in college and you're studying photography and film, who were some of your influences?
Oh gosh, Ernst Haas was an amazing Magnum photographer who worked in color. I loved his work. William Allard was a National Geographic photographer who, almost all his work is available light, just brilliant stuff. You could still see his work if he has an Instagram page.
Huh. What's his name? I'm going to check it out.
William Allard.
Okay. And what were the things that you especially liked about him, for example?
His use of natural light, his use of his framing was amazing. Mm-hmm. Is amazing. He's in his 80s now. I don't think he's actively shooting. Right. You might disagree with that, but some of his work is just classically beautiful,
right?
Cinematic, actually,
right.
And Ernst Haas work was in color, beautiful as well. Another influence who became a good friend is Co Rentmeester. He's a Dutch-American photographer, worked for Life magazine, and I met him through Life magazine. And he's the only photographer I've ever assisted, and we're still friends.
It's nice.
He's a dear man.
Assisting, so you're putting the film in the camera.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. We were
inside a bag, I'm guessing.
just keeping track of it was all canisters.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. But those were kind of my main. Eugene Smith, Eugene Smith for black and white.
Right. Gorgeous. I used to have a print by him on my college dorm wall or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. So you talk about framing, and your website, your company sort of tagline, if there's such a thing, is telling your story frame by frame.
Right.
And so when you've got a 35 millimeter camera or any camera, I mean, you're really thinking a lot about the framing. It's everything. And then I guess you took that. It sounds like you took that into the video realm.
Yes.
And who were some of the other video directors, moving picture directors?
Well,
film
directors. I mean, my all-time idol is Fellini. I mean, just his work is masterful, of course. I mean, Ingmar Bergman, two men from that period of time back, making movies in the 60s, 70s, 80s, but two completely different mindsets to making films, but both of them just brilliant storytellers. I would say those were Francis Ford Coppola is just another, I think, amazing filmmaker. So yeah.
Some of those old films, it's like every scene could just be a painting.
You could stop it at any point.
Yeah. And are there contemporary people who you admire for that?
Gosh, I'm trying to think now. I'll come back to that one.
Okay. You can pass on that one.
I'll pass on that.
All right. Now, a loyal listener named Kathy, I think, sent in some questions. One of them was asking him about his assignment at the Masters in Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah. So I was hired by CBS Sports to shoot stills for the Masters for them, and I went down there, on a Wednesday before, the weekend, and walked the course with the CBS.
Are you a golfer?
Here's the thing: I had never hit a golf ball off of other than a driving range or a putting green.
Right.
So we walked the course, find out my angles, and he goes, "Come on, let's hit some balls." So first time I ever hit a ball off a tee on a course was the 10th tee at Augusta National. And golfers hate that story. They really hate it. But it was fun. It was fun to just
once again, your peers are pissed off that it's all the shit's falling in your lap.
Yeah, what's happening?
And how'd you hit it? How was the drive? I did it straight down. The
first time it probably went off on the side. I got one down the. I didn't make par.
Right.
Let's put it that way.
That's nice. And so, did you actually play 9 holes or just the 10th?
God, no. Yeah, we weren't. Yeah, we got probably booted off of there pretty quickly, as I remember.
Hey, you photographers, stop chewing up our course. Wow, what a blast! And did that sort of light a fire? Do you play golf now, or
no? I don't play golf now. It's I think it's just the time consumption.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, big commitment to start learning. So
right. And plus, you've got an old house to tend to, so I'm guessing that chews up a lot of time as well.
Yes, Kathy, my wife, and I, we bought her family farm from the family trust. So we bought the farm last year.
Did she have many siblings?
Three brothers.
So you bought them all out?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's a 1763 stone house, so it's not without its issues, but we're working on it. We've been working on it diligently. So
is the foundation okay?
Yeah, everything's good. The stone part's solid. Getting people to work on it if a contractor comes in and looks at the windows and goes, you're really losing a lot of energy out of these windows. You should really upgrade to vinyl.
Anderson,
yeah. It's like thank you for taking the time to come over, but you're not going to be ever touching
leaded glass.
Oh yes, it's all the wavy glass.
Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there are projects.
It's the land of the never-ending shore.
Yes.
And it's in Rhinebeck somewhere.
Yeah, it's in Rhinebeck. Yes, South Rhinebeck.
And Kathy grew up there?
She grew up in the house, yeah.
Wow.
And her father grew up there with his siblings, and her grandparents bought it in 1933.
And were they farmers?
They moved from New Jersey. I guess, her grandfather was a lawyer. And they had money in 2 banks in New Jersey. One failed at the Depression, one didn't. And with the one that didn't, they bought this house in 90 acres. And I think he still was a lawyer. He was a lawyer in Rhinebeck. Okay. He had a little country lawyer, and
wow.
And it was the sons that were doing the farming.
Okay.
So,
and what were they growing?
It was a dairy farm.
Or raising?
It was a dairy farm. Yeah. Yeah. So it hasn't been farmed in a number of years, over 20 years. So technically it's organic. I mean, we'd have to go through the whole process of getting it certified.
Right.
But one of the things we are looking to do is grow some rye for distilleries.
Oh, nice.
And yeah.
Huh. Well, let me just ask, you were kind enough, as is a tradition here in Correct If I'm Wrong, to bring in a cocktail. What are we drinking?
We're drinking a Taconic Rye Manhattan.
I had a hunch it might be rye.
Yes.
Well, thank you. This is delicious. And what is in here?
Well, the Taconic Rye and vermouth and a couple of dashes of bitters.
And you're a fan of the Taconic Rye?
Yeah,
and was
I am.
this part of the decision-making process to maybe grow rye?
No, we were looking at something that we wanted to. We were looking at things we wanted to do with the farm. I mean, I'm not a farmer. Kathy's not a farmer, right? So we're looking at things. What can we do to put the land to use that's still good for the land? I mean, not just letting it go to.
Do you mow it once a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly Kathy. She gets out there on a tractor and mows that.
It must take days.
It does. It does. But when we researched, we found that rye was the first. Can I say "fuck you" on the air?
No.
Oh no. Okay.
But you already did.
Oh yeah. One way. Yeah.
I'm pulling your leg.
Rye was considered the first "fuck you" crop of the colonists because the British
to the English.
The British were taxing the Scotch. So they said, screw it, we'll grow our own. And, in the South, it was bourbon from corn. In the North, it was rye. It was whiskey from rye. So we like that kind of aspect of it.
Huh. And is there a big demand for rye right now?
Yes, yeah.
Everybody's shaking their head.
Everyone's shaking their heads.
Now, rye whiskey seems like in the last 15 years or so, all of a sudden, everybody wants rye whiskey.
Yeah, it's not as sweet as bourbon.
Right.
And people like that. I think the distilleries in New York, I could be wrong on my timing on this, but I think eventually they're going to have to keep their tax exempt or status. We're going to have to start buying almost all their crops from New York State.
Oh.
So
that sounds pretty smart.
So, we're looking into that. Again, we're not going to be out there farming it, so we're going to look to hire, partner with a farmer or something. So if there's any farmers listening.
Right. And how many acres? You said 60 or something?
We're down to 66.
Down to 66.
Yeah.
And do you ever get approached by farmers saying, "Hey, I'd love to plant something"?
We just closed the deal of buying it last April, so we haven't really.
Gotcha.
And now we're into winter, so we have. We thought this is the time to start to talk to some people.
But when it was in the trust, I mean, it's the same land.
Yeah, it was just not our decision what to do with it.
But were people approaching the trust? I mean, were farmers desperate for land to grow their crops on?
I think for a while, there was one farmer who was growing some hay for horses. And I was not privy to all that information, so I don't know why that stopped. But yeah.
And are the brothers still around?
Two of them are in the area, and one is in Florida. Yeah. So.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Now I'm just scheming like, well, how can I wangle an invitation? I want to see this place.
Well, you've got it.
It's an old stone house.
Yeah. Old stone.
And it's somewhere south of town.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I give the street ad? Or I probably shouldn't give a street ad. No.
The stalkers who listen to this show. It's terrible.
It's in Rhinebeck, though. It's in the town of Rhinebeck. Yeah. So.
Wow. So you're shopping around this pilot, this short film you made. What's next for you in that realm professionally?
Finishing up a screenplay that is finished, and now I'm in the process of going through it and just correcting and fine-tuning some of the dialogue and scenes. So that's going to be ready to put out into the world hopefully by February 1st.
Where will you go? You've got connections.
There are people who are interested in a first look. So,
and what's the elevator pitch? If you want to share, you don't have to.
It's a coming of age story that involves a boy in the space program.
Okay.
So it's sort of auto-fictional in that sense. So, yeah. I've
never heard that phrase, auto-fictional.
Well, it's not autobiographical because it's not exactly.
No, it works, auto-fictional.
Yeah. So...
And your dad working at Grumman was in dealing with space?
Yeah, well, Grumman made the lunar module that landed on the moon with the astronauts.
And they make lots of post office trucks, too.
Yeah, they got into the vehicle and canoe business.
Yeah, canoes, right, I forgot.
But, yeah, their big thing was airplanes before, World War II was airplanes. And then it was the lunar module, which was a very tense time because, it's like they're building the thing that if they go to launch off the moon and it doesn't work, they're stuck.
Yeah.
So there's
no rescue mission.
There was no rescue mission.
So it must have been kind of cool as a young
amazingly cool
to have your dad doing that stuff.
Yeah, it was amazingly cool. Yeah.
Nice.
And so it's a coming of age during that whole time.
Okay.
Of moving to Texas. So.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I'll buy it.
Okay.
When you put it out for beds. I don't have any money at all, but it sounds pretty good. And the process of writing it's 90 or 100 pages or something.
Right now, it's 92 pages.
Okay. How was that? Have you been a writer in the past?
I've written one previous screenplay that is still. I haven't really shopped it around in a while, but yeah. Yeah, I've done it before, so.
And you enjoy that?
I do. It's just something different, For me, it's something different.
Well, film, even like still photos. I mean, it's still a collaboration.
Yeah.
You've got assistants, and there's lighting guys, and
Yep.
and the movies. It's even more of a collaboration.
Right.
So when you're writing, are you writing by yourself, or do you have a partner?
Yeah, no, I'm writing by myself.
So that's got to be super different.
Yeah, and it's giving yourself all right. 2 hours after coffee to do it and then stop at noon, that kind of a thing. So
And are you disciplined like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
And what do you do with your cell phone?
It's on, but I don't really, I do it on my computer. So there's emails popping up and stuff like that. So, it's glancing over. I don't feel like I have to get totally immersed to be able to.
You don't mind the little diversions?
No, I don't. Because part of being a photojournalist, I worked for my local community, little newspaper in Camarillo, California, Camarillo Daily News. So I would go out and cover, and this is while I was in college, I would go and cover an event like a basketball game or something, have to come back and write captions. and I'm writing it in a newsroom, and it's not it's not the New York Times, but it's still like clankety clank. A lot of typewriters
every newsroom in every movie ever. Noisy place.
Yeah, noisy place. People yelling, smoking. Probably drinking, and you have to learn how to focus on what you were doing really quickly. So I think that has been something that's been a great experience for me, a great learning experience that I can, shut things out when I have to. So like our son Will might run through the room and, want to show me his latest Lego invention he created.
Right.
And, you stop and you look at it and then you just go back to it. So
that's so sweet. And how old is Will?
Will's 10 now, 5th grader last year at elementary school.
Wow.
So,
5th grade at Chancellor Livingston.
Yeah.
Who's his teacher?
Collins.
Yeah. I've heard she's pretty good.
Yeah. She's great. She's great.
Yeah. She was here where you're sitting right now.
Was she?
She came in and talked. Yeah.
Good. He's also done some acting, and we call it pretending. And he's in the new Jim Gaffigan movie that's coming out next month called Linoleum.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And what does he do? Does he have lines and stuff?
No, but he's got some action.
Nice.
He does, yeah.
Does he enjoy that?
He thinks it's just, it's fun.
There's
it's
a
fun.
Table with all the M&Ms he can eat.
And he's very nonchalant about it, which is great. He doesn't think it's such a huge deal. So it's fun. It sort of keeps him, his mind active in a way that's not just schoolwork and not just sports. So it's something different.
Does he get out of school sometimes?
Oh yeah, they do.
Oh, nice.
They do.
And his mom, your wife, is an actress. Who's doing all right for herself.
Yeah. She just got a. She had a role as someone's wife in Succession, and they shot in August, and they called her back for another 7 days of shooting. So
nice.
She's doing that this week and next week. So,
and where is that shooting?
I can't. I'm not.
You're not allowed to say.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say. I'm not allowed to say.
Makes me want to know even more.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And so when she comes home from the set every night, do you ask her how the day went?
Yeah, we have friends who have a residence in the city, and they're not there right now. So she's been able to stay there, which is great.
I'm narrowing it down where the shoot is.
Damn it.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Good for her. That must be kind of exciting.
Yeah, it is.
Because if she gives this small part enough excitement, if she gives a small role enough character,
absolutely,
people are going to say, "Hey, we really like that lady." And
it's
good for her.
Kind of I think it's called feature background or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So,
and have she and Will ever been on a movie together?
Yes, they were on one together this summer called Theater Camp. That was shot down in Newburgh, I think. And the commercial they did with Jim Glorioso, Will was their son. So Jim likes to claim he's Will's other father.
Nice. I see a fight
going
on,
possibly.
Rumble. Yeah. He's a big guy.
I know.
What's your reach? Yeah. What a blast. And does he have some idea that he might like to be an actor, or he doesn't care?
He doesn't care right now.
Right.
Not at this age. Yeah.
5th grade. Well, I had ideas at 5th grade of what I thought I might like to do.
What did you want to do?
Oh, well, that's a whole nother show. Honest to God, when I was 5th grade, there were 2 things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a talk show host or a game show host.
Well, you got one of them.
I did.
Wow.
The game show thing's going to come soon enough. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think lots of people at that young age have a thought like, oh, I might like to be a doctor or a fireman or a policeman.
It's interesting. We went through this whole conversation about the difference between jobs and careers. So he said, Dad, what if I was a bus driver? I said, there's nothing wrong being a bus driver, but just know that it's kind of a job and it's not a career, and maybe shoot for a career Oh, yeah. And so we'll be going to school. If I'm taking him to school, he'll say, Dad, what about oh, never mind. And he'll realize that's something he's thinking about. I think his exposure to being on set, I have 2 older kids, and they're both in the business as well.
Oh, nice.
So I think his exposure to being on sets and work, working in the industry will probably influence him going forward.
And is he close to his older half siblings?
Yeah, he loves them.
Nice.
He loves
What
them.
are their ages?
My daughter is in her mid-30s. My son is in his early 30s.
Wow.
Yeah. And my daughter lives nearby. And she lives in Old Greenwich. So we get to see them a lot more than
That's nice.
my son who's in Florida.
Wait,
So-
are you a grandpa?
Oh, shit. Yeah, I am. You had to bring that up. Did you see the note, Norm?
did.
Don't not bring up that I'm a
didn't-
grandfather.
I didn't see that. It must have been sloppily written. How old are your grandkids? Or kid?
2.5 and 9 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 2 boys, and they're in Old Greenwich, so we get to see them.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that old enough for you to sort of spoil them, to sort of get revenge on your.
on my daughter. Yeah. She's very, very particular about, like, did you wash your hands after you came in? From the back. Yes, I did. So.
Right. That's good. And did both of your kids graduate here, or?
No, this was before Rhinebeck.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the city in Long Island. Yeah.
And what do they do in the business?
Well, my son is a photographer and videographer, mostly for real estate in Florida, in the Stuart, Florida area, and he's trying to blossom out into other areas. And my daughter is a producer at Dash Meredith.
I don't know.
Dot Meredith.
I don't know.
They're the largest publisher in the world right now. They own the Time, like, People brand.
Meredith.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they merged with Dash, I believe.
Okay.
So
Meredith means something to me. Dash.
It was a merger, which is kind of ironic because I started out with People magazine, and now my daughter works. She's a producer at that publishing company. So, digital producer. So, yeah.
So you've had an amazing, kind of a blessed
Thank you.
career, it sounds like, all of these wonderful opportunities coming to you. And you've had a couple of changes, where you chose this path versus that path. You look back and wonder what these other paths might have been like. Do you have any regrets? Part 2 of the question.
No regrets.
Good.
To answer part 2. Yes, of course. Some of the stuff we're doing now with screenplay writing and getting Almost Made off the ground, and hopefully other projects off the ground. It would have been nice to have started that sooner.
Right.
But it's okay. There's no age limit on those. So no regrets at all. I mean, I enjoyed the path that it was.
Right. But you'd be in a completely different place had you stayed with photojournalism.
Oh God. Yeah. It's so hard to make a career in photojournalism today, I think. So.
And do you shoot any photojournalistic stuff anymore?
Not really. No. I mean, some of the assignments that I do for my corporate clients they want a photojournalistic feel to it. Or let's say I go in for Weill Cornell, we go into a medical situation. We did some shooting during the pandemic, and it was very photojournalistic. It was really, you weren't directing anything. You were just capturing.
Right. So that must have been kind of fun to get back to that.
Yeah. Even though it was during COVID. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Well, somehow we have chewed up an hour
Holy crap.
talking about this. It has been so much fun having you here.
Thank you
and
for
talking
having me.
with you and hearing about your wonderful life.
Oh, thank you.
And best of luck to your wife and kid.
Yes.
As they knock on the door of fame as actors and actresses. And thank you, Roger Tully, for being here. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been, correct me if I'm wrong, on Radio Free Rhinecliff. Thanks, Radio Free Rhinecliff, for hosting this. So thankful. Everybody have a happy Friday. Good night.
Thank you.